JAMPJA.org. Mind the business JA with JAMP Online. Are your business? They keep your government in line.
Use the MP tracker. If you watch how them a move, the accountability meter help them improve.
Take action.
Use the JAMP tool.
Track your MP cause they work for you. Mind your business JA with JAMP Online.
Let's monitor government at jampja.org.
So good morning, one and all, on this extremely sunny and hot end of May Friday. On behalf of the organizers for today, that is JAMP, and also our partners since our founding, the PSOJ, we really want to give you a warm welcome to this morning's session, elevating accountability, reducing risk, enhancing trust in Jamaica's public institutions. What I anticipate will be a most learning, energizing, and listen to this part because this is where you come in, engaging session. Yes? So let me begin, first of all, by giving a few special salutations and greetings. We would like to warmly welcome Mr. Bruce Golding, our former Prime Minister of Jamaica and guest speaker for today. We would like to welcome, and some of these folks will be joining us as we proceed, but we would like to welcome Mr. Julian Robinson, Shadow Minister of Finance and the Public Service, and Chairman of the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, Senator Donna Scott Motley, Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate. We also have with us, from our development partners, really pleased to welcome Ms. Vanna Lawrence, who has been our project manager at the European, she's representing today Mr. Anacita Rodriguez Ruiz, who is the first counselor and head of corporation of the European Union delegation to Jamaica. But Ms. Vanna Lawrence has actually been our project manager with the European Union for things that we do there vis-a-vis JAMP. So we're grateful to have her. We also have most ably representing the PSOJ this morning. We have Mrs. Gilma Solomon, who is Vice President of the PSOJ. We also have Mrs. Camille Facey, Chairperson of the PSOJ's Corporate Governance Committee. We're also happy to welcome Ms. Claudia Thompson, who's representing Mr. Andrew Bowden, who is currently the Development Representative for Jamaica and Caribbean Regional Counselor at the British High Commission. Now, I'm usually someone who's in the audience and I get a little bit restless when we read out all these names and give the titles, but it's very important to recognize how much partnership is actually behind the work that we are sharing and presenting and engaging with you today on. So that's why it's important to do this. We also have some significant apologies. That would be from Mr. Delana Severite. That would be Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Government Member of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. We also have apologies from Mr. Christopher Brown, Member of Parliament and Member of the Public Accounts Committee. So let me talk a little bit about the constituencies who are gathered here today. We want to recognize our public sector entities. The last event we had with JAMP was wholly about our different public sector entities and making sure they had an opportunity to present and engage with each other and the media. Your presence here is noted, and we really, really hope that what we present today is useful to you as you return to your institutions and lead these institutions in service of Jamaica. We also want to very much welcome every single member of PSOJ and the business community at large. We have come to recognize in civil society that us on the advocacy, the research side, are only strengthened by great partnership with those on the business side. So thank you for being here. We also want to make sure that we extend welcome to everyone who considers themselves a part of civil society, and particularly the press, the members of media who will be carrying the message from today far and wide. Yeah. And my last big welcome actually is to each one of us in our civil society and in our citizenry identity. What do I mean by that? There's no one I named above. You could be a former prime minister. You could be a business person. You could be an advocate and activist. We're all mere citizens of Jamaica. So that is the way in which we hope to engage today, not only from your specific constituency, but that thing that we all have in common, that we are members of the shared society. So ladies and gentlemen, JAMP was founded on a simple but powerful belief that citizens who are informed are citizens who can act, and that accountability is not a slogan, it is a practice, and practice requires tools. So why are we here today? We're here to launch 2 new JAMP trackers. That is the Public Bodies Tracker and the Sectoral Commitment Tracker. right? So follow me, ladies and gentlemen. I spoke about learning. When I make promises, I like to back up my promise. So when I say we're here to learn today, what do I mean? Please refer to the program that you have in your hand, and you will see their blurbs on the various trackers, the various tools that JAMP has developed over the years. The 2 trackers that we're launching today are 7 and 8. We have a suite of 8 tools. And when you begin to understand how much complex information is broken down into an accessible format in each one of these tools, then you will understand what a big deal it is. So quickly, when you look at the program, guys, I'm not sure if you're aware that JAMP has a national budget tool. This is taking information directly from the Ministry of Finance. You can go into this tool and you can access exactly how the public purse is being spread across various ministries and sectors. You can check on spending activities. You can check on sources of revenue. You can check on levels of debt. Or did you know that we have an MP tracker, which, as far as we are aware, is the only tool which facilitates citizens being able to be directly in touch with their MP. So even though we're here on 2 particular trackers, I could not lose the opportunity to bring your attention to the rigorous work that has been done. This is part of a journey, and you will see already that there's another tracker in the works on hurricane response spending. Yeah. So when I say we're here to learn, please promise me that you will not only pay attention, that you will engage, but you will take the tool with you, continue to explore it, and to utilize it. Right? This is why they have been developed. I also promised energizing and engaging. Yes. Our very, very special guest speaker will be most ably introduced by JAMP chairperson, Carol Narcisse. So that's to come on the agenda. But I just wanted to say very quickly that there are few others who can speak from such a perspective of having served the nation at the highest level and then who has become so willing. I refer to Bruce Golding as one of our elder statesmen. And it is very important that there are those who are willing to be humble and honest about the journey we have been on vis-a-vis governance, to do that with gravitas, with measure, and with balance. We're grateful to have him. So I said energizing. The other bit now is engaging, right? So following our wonderful remarks from our guest speaker, you'll have a live demonstration from the one and only Jeanette Calder, Executive Director of JAMP. And I want you to get ready to take out your devices, because when we say demonstration and when I say engagement, you're going to get on your device and you're going to have an opportunity to navigate this to yourself. So you leave with that real life application in your belt. Yes, I'm going to look to the back. When we say transparency, we mean in everything. So I'm very transparently giving these welcome remarks. And I'm looking to the back for any indication of where there's Wi-Fi information for anyone who needs it. Anyone from the back? Okay, we'll see. But we'll make sure ahead of the demonstration that those of you who need a Wi-Fi password have it, because we need all of you active and engaged on your devices navigating the tool. It's there. So I'll make sure it's written down and that you guys are able to jump online. So those are my welcoming duties. But myself, as a JAMP board director, I had to take the quick opportunity to give you a few reflections from the perspective as a member of JAMP. And when I say reflections, these are not to be confused with the more substantive remarks that will be coming from our wonderful partners immediately following myself. One thing I want to reflect on is how many of us who do this work, especially behind the scenes, we do it from a sense of service. We do it from a sense of wanting to be involved in our nation. And we do it very much with a hope of what I'm going to call development for our people. And by development, let me be clear, not just a development that deals with material gains and productivity, absolutely important, but the development that deals with democratic gains and integrity. And to my mind, humbly, one of the things that is required for true development is maturity. So this is a lens in which I wanted to give you a little snapshot from the inside on JAMP. And some of the things that a Jeanette or a Caldo may not always speak to as our most able leader, someone who's been in the trenches with her behind the scenes. When I think of maturity, I start with composition, right? There's much that is said about the folks who speak up from civil society. You have a set of voices and faces that you're more accustomed to. Those are the ones who are more comfortable. But when you think of something like the JAMP board and who is represented on the JAMP board, it is a broad tent. It is a broad tent. And here, let me call some names. Some of you would have been aware that the founding chairperson of JAMP, Howard Mitchell, a business stalwart when he was president of PSOJ, right? How many of you would have been aware that we once had a one Patricia Sinclair McCallum, that is CEO of Public Sector Transformation Unit. It's a stalwart from public sector. On our board, we have had the service of our Reverend Astor Carlisle. That is a pastor at Webster Memorial United Church. Very dynamic congregation. We've had academics. Now the Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Audrey Henry Lee. And very fitting that she's a Pro Vice Chancellor of Research, because that is at the core of what we do. I could go on and on. Our latest board members is someone who's a returnee from the UK diaspora. I promise you he could be doing a lot with his retirement pounds, other than sitting with Jeanette, making sure that our audits are up to where they need to be and that we are managing our finances as responsibly as possible. We have a young budding commentator, David Salmon. David needs to be finishing up his PhD at Oxford, but he is doing commentary on press releases and sitting in for 3-hour board meetings. So just to make clear, when I think of maturity, I think of, can you compose a group of people who don't all have to believe in the same thing and act and speak the same way, but can move in the same direction? Maturity. Another thing that we think of when we say maturity, ladies and gentlemen, at least I do, is the quality of your conversations. Yeah. And so again, at the core of JAMP, and here I want to continue to shout out the team. You'll see what I'm doing here. You know of one or two, but you need to know of everybody. Listen to the titles of the 2 permanent staff that alongside with Jeanette Calder do all of this work, right? We have Ika Bailey, and Ika, who is our senior research officer. And we have the incredible Terry Ann Thomas, who is research and administrative officer. Everyone at JAMP is involved in research. Everyone. Why? Because there is no entering into the conversation and being supportive of national dialogue if you don't have the data, the information, and if you're not evidence-based. Hence these tools. So when I tell you about 8 tools that we're going on to 9, every time Jeanette comes to the board with a proposal for another tracker, we say, no, Jeanette, we have enough, another one. And when Jeanette makes the case of what the research student, the journalist, the parliamentarian who's concerned about really doing their oversight role, the other civil society advocates who don't necessarily have the research function and specialist expertise, then there we go. Yes to another tracker. Thank you so much to the EU and to the UK Department for International Development, FCDO, for the support they've given, because Jeanette is not slowing down on getting this information in a very accessible way into the hands of the citizenry. So to me, that is a mark of maturity. When you have that long arc vision and you say it may take years to develop the tools, but no mature conversation without the tools. So develop the tools we shall do. Yeah, that felt very important. And then the last point I will make on maturity, and this is a big one, is in how you deal with criticism, especially as a leader, as someone who has sought to take on responsibility and to be accountable beyond your own individual life. So I wanted to take this opportunity to say, and I hope Jeanette in particular, but there are others who walk this line, when you step up to support the development of your nation, and you take seriously your role and responsibility as a citizen, and you are met with criticism, some of it constructive, some of it with no basis at all, and you develop the art of understanding when there's no need to wade in, when you stay to the course of contributing from your information and evidence base, you don't get into becoming overly defensive, and even more integral, you don't return with criticism for the sake of criticism. That to me is when we're talking about maturity. And these are some of the reasons why it makes me particularly proud to be here this morning and to be a part of this team, right? Because we are all here hoping to hand out a better Jamaica to the generations that come. And we see the progress we're making, but we know what, there's better still. And we don't intend to sit on the sidelines and just say, what a better that must come there. We plan to be an active part of it. So thank you for being here today. Once again, the way this program will proceed is that we have a series of remarks from our amazing partners. Those persons will come up to the podium as they are listed in the program. And then we will proceed into our engaging and energizing Camille Facey, Jeanette Calder. Before that, our guest speaker, Bruce Golding, And please, please, please take note of your questions, take note of your provocations. Make sure you're paying attention and having fun with the application of the tool so that we can have a good Q&A. And most importantly, we can leave this room ready to share the tools and to utilize the tools. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here representing PSOJ. Where's my thing? Representing the PSOJ, who, as you just heard, have been a long-standing partner of this amazing initiative. And I just want to take the time to recognize a few people. You know you're in the right place when so many of your favorites are in the room. So first, I have to recognize the Honorable Bruce Golding, who I had the pleasure of working with many years ago, and we thank you for your contribution and continuing service. I also have to recognize, of course, Jeanette Calder, who is the lady behind the mission, Camille Facey, and our incredibly brilliant and eloquent MC, Dr. Nadia Figueroa. And then allow me to go off script a little bit and recognize some of my favorites and besties in the audience. Of course, I have to recognize MP Julian Robinson. Thank you too for your service. And my dear friend Simone Pearson, who has been flying the flag of good governance and contributing to the good work that the PSOJ does. I have to recognize the media, and Al Edwards is here, and thank you for being here. And of course, the depth that Dr. Figueroa spoke of in terms of the support and partnership. We see Reverend Devon Dick in the audience and Joy Clark bringing the Montego Bay representation into the house. So thank you all so much, and thank you all for being here and your support. So I have to start by commending Jeanette. This is such a mammoth task that she has undertaken with her team of 2, Ika and Terrian. And it shows great leadership and great mettle. And it is something that I'm very proud to say I have supported for many years. And we know that the ability to assess and track the performance of our leadership through the government, through initiatives like this, can only inure to the benefit of our nation's development. We want to strengthen transparency, as Dr. Figueroa said, accountability, and data-driven decision-making. Allow me to go off script again. I remember first day that Jeanette came to the PSOJ to pitch this idea, which was very much in its infancy and an idea. And if you know me, you know that my face tells what I am feeling. So I was enthralled by this. I thought it was a brilliant initiative, and I was so impressed that this lady had the absolute courage to consider taking this on. And clearly my face was demonstrating it, because I remember halfway through her pitch, Jeanette said, you know what? And this was a room of the PSOJ exec at the time. It was about 2017. And Jeanette said, I just going to present to Gail, because I can see that Gail believe in this thing. So I just going to look at Gail and tell her about this thing. And tell her she did. And the pitch was well received. Jeanette got the strength that she needed. And I feel very proud that I played some minor role in launching this amazing initiative. And Jeanette and team, here we are now. So the PSOJ is very proud to have been part of that journey from the very beginning, supporting and contributing to the development of the first 6 trackers. Our member companies contributed around 8 million Jamaican dollars, which would have supported the team in building out the tracker. And we remain committed. Howard Mitchell has continued from that very beginning to play an instrumental role, and that has continued through the current PSOJ leadership with Patrick Hilton and the vice presidents, of which Camille is part of that executive team. And we see the PSOJ out here today. We see Andrew and we see Jamila And so we know that the team is here still supporting and continuing the good work. And I really have to recognize also someone who isn't here with us today, but remains in our memory and in our hearts, and that is Greta Boggs, because she supported this effort from the very beginning in a very profound way. And I shared a very personal connection with Greta. And if any of you watched the Grace Kennedy, my day job is at Grace Kennedy. So if you watched our AGM on Wednesday, you would have heard Frank James, our CEO, introduce me not as general counsel, but as the person that keeps everyone out of trouble, which I try to do. But that really comes from the impact and the training that Greta bestowed on me. And I'm very proud to continue to fly her flag high. And I have to thank Camille Facey, who has ably taken up that mantle. So we know that good governance reaps benefits in any sphere it's highlighted. I mean, some of you may know, Simone knows, even though I'm firmly embedded in corporate Jamaica now, I started my career in the Attorney General's chambers, and that's when I had the pleasure of working with our guest speaker, the Honorable Bruce Golding, where I would have had to make presentations to the Joint Select Committee of Parliament. And I will tell you that at any time that Mr. Golding was going to be present, we knew we had to be extra prepared. And we used to joke in the office and say, "You have legal training? Oh, I know so much." Such a brilliant mind that we are grateful to continue to benefit from. And it's no surprise that he's here today, because he too is a stickler for good governance, accountability, and all things that inure to the benefit of Jamaica. So thank you, sir, for being with us today. And of course, we have to continue thanking our development partners, because without the partnership, this couldn't happen. And so Nadia would have recognized our representative from the European Union here today, and who has been supporting this work from 2019 until now. And then, of course, the UK government through the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, who also have co-funded and importantly stepped in at a time when there was a gap and we would have really been challenged in completion, and they stepped in. And that kind of partnership is what makes this sustainable impact a possibility. So thank you so much. At PSOJ, we firmly believe that sustainable national development requires strong partnerships between the public and private sectors, grounded in trust and measurable outcomes. And a platform of this nature provides an objective basis for understanding progress, identifying gaps, and fostering constructive dialogue. It's important to say that it's not about criticism, it's about fostering that constructive dialogue so that we can have true sustained economic and social progress. And for me, this is also personal. I mentioned that I started my career in the public sector, but I am also the proud daughter of two public servants, and I come from a long line of public servants, starting with my grandfather, Edgar James Whiteman, who was a school teacher and a pastor in the great Maypen. And even closer to home, my father was a member of parliament in St. Anne, where I was born and raised, and went to Servite Primary and Westwood High School. And yes, I wore the Jippy Jappa hat. Now, at the time when my father was an MP, his means of accountability and tracking performance was showing up every Saturday morning in his constituency office without fail, to the detriment of his family. I can attest to that. And I see Honorable Bruce Golding nodding, because he knows about that kind of sacrifice, and so does MP Robinson. And I believe that his ability to show up every Saturday for his constituents, and they knew he would be there, rain or shine, was a testament to his commitment to them. And they believed in it, which is why they re-elected him not once, but twice before he retired. So that was in the early 90s. Fast forward to today, where all the partners here, Jeanette and her team, have modernized the approach, and they have given us information and the ability to hold our leadership accountable at our fingertips in a very real and measurable way. And this ability to observe the stewardship of our public resources is absolutely critical to our nation's development. And we applaud you, Jeanette, for that. And so, as the private sector, because that's who I'm representing today, we stand ready to continue to support initiatives such as these and to continue to support the implementation of new trackers. I know Dr. Figueroa said that the board kind of throws up their hands every time Jeanette comes with another one. And it's a testament to your leadership, Jeanette, that you have such an amazing, diverse and strong board and team supporting you, and that you have continued to galvanize the support, because we want to improve service delivery. We want to build confidence among our citizens, our investors, and all the stakeholders represented in this room, so that together we can create a better Jamaica. We believe that that will result in a competitive, productive, and inclusive Jamaican economy, which inures to all our benefit. It will support businesses so that we can continue to innovate and thrive, not just locally, but globally. Thank you all so much for your time.
I'm grateful to Dr. Figueroa and Ms. Solomon, who acknowledged the EU support. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good morning. I greet you today on behalf of Mr. Aniceto Rodriguez Ruiz, who is unavoidably absent. In fact, he's out of the country. And on his behalf, I deliver these few words. The European Union values every opportunity to share with our partners our commitment to human rights and democracy. The European Union was founded on and actively promotes the core values of human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, and the rule of law for all people. These values are bindingly enshrined in the Charter of Fundamental Rights and the Lisbon Treaty, and commits the EU to protecting civil, political, economic, and social rights of all its citizens, while promoting these principles with our global partners. The European Union is a long-standing global champion for civil society as development actors who protect and promote democracy, rule of law, and human rights. Their actions contribute to reducing inequality, lead to social cohesion, and contribute to achieving better development outcomes. To this end, in 2023, the EU provided a second grant to facilitate the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal to further contribute to the system of governance in Jamaica. In most democratic environments, state or public accountability is centered around the bureaucratic web of horizontal relationships between and among government institutions, agencies, and watchdog bodies that monitor performance and ensure the observance of the rule of law. This speaks to the heart of public accountability, the obligation of a government and its officials to answer directly to the public as key stakeholders, explaining government policies, outlining the effectiveness of public expenditure, and clarifying governance arrangements that prevent corruption. The government of Jamaica has invested significant resources in the development of legislation as well as accountability frameworks that guide corporate governance, accountability, and transparency of all state agencies. Despite this, citizens and civil society have commented on the ability of some duty bearers and government agencies to operate outside of established compliance measures with impunity.
Public demand for accountability and transparency has been encouraged by significant civil society advocacy, especially initiatives led by Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal and similar agencies. We hope our discussions today will focus on reducing the risks and enhancing trust in public institutions, social components of accountability, and social actions that are meant to invest in developing the Jamaicans' citizens' ability to demand their rights, to hold government accountable for achieving democratic deepening, and for promoting trust in the legitimacy of states' actions. Civil society organizations such as JAMP possess the unique capacity to develop in a country the environment for social accountability, where a rights-based reality reassures each citizen that his participation is a part of his democratic rights. CSOs can contribute to this form of democratic deepening by educating the populace on how to hold duty bearers accountable, to monitor performance, to ensure adherence to the rule of law, and thus to improve either real or perceived democratic accountability deficits. To that effect, we use this opportunity to encourage all citizens to engage with the tools being launched today and to be interested in whether recommendations can contribute to addressing the gaps identified in citizens' participation in the democratic process. We are quite hopeful that, like in the past, the discourse around these tools will lead to policy conversations and revisions grounded in the best interests of each citizen. We therefore encourage the efforts of Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal to amplify the matters that are pertinent to the people of Jamaica and wish you the best for communicating these tools to the several stakeholders and duty bearers who can implement changes that will contribute to the achievement of Jamaica's Vision 2030 goals. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Figueroa for the warm welcome that you given to me. I'm representing Andrew Bowden, who is the representative of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office here in Jamaica. Esteemed guest speaker, Honorable Buscode, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, specially invited guests, colleagues, and friends. Very pleasant morning to you. United Kingdom warmly congratulates JAMP and its partners on the launch of the Public Bodies and Sectoral Commitment Trackers. This innovative move will change how anti-corruption is both measured and monitored in Jamaica. This initiative is not just the launch of 2 digital tools, but they represent important steps in strengthening transparency, accountability, and public trust. As a long-standing partner to Jamaica, the UK is proud to co-fund this initiative, which supports good governance and anti-corruption efforts. JAMP has contributed immensely to our work and has been a trusted partner for the past 4 years. Their collation of credible data has undoubtedly provided greater insight and clarity to the Jamaican public, and these trackers, while adding to JAMP's data-centered and evidence-based approach to tackling corruption, they will most importantly help to inform policy, empower civil society, and support ongoing national efforts to address corruption. As these initiatives gain more traction, we anticipate that it will further support Jamaica's development agenda by contributing to greater public confidence and fostering a culture of integrity across sectors. We look forward to its longevity and seeing the positive impact it will have in promoting integrity and accountability and ultimately sustainable reforms. We once again congratulate JAMP on this very important milestone and remain committed to our continued partnership in years to come. Thank you so much.
If you step outside, you will be greeted
by, I don't know, perhaps 30 degrees. It's hot outside. It's also hot in the body politic. We have been, continue to be living in the interesting times. And in particular, times in which accountability remains a contested concept and objective, if we can believe that. And so we are very, very fortunate this morning to have as our guest speaker, Mr. Bruce Golding, former Prime Minister. Now, you will have had the opportunity to read the background that's in the program, so I won't refer to that. What it will be, and is my pleasure to refer to, is just a little bit of Mr. Golding's track record as a leader for whom accountability was important, and who not just said so, but moved the needle considerably in the institutional, structural, and policy framework that we have in place and which we continue to hope will be abided by. And so, just as a refresher of our collective memories, Mr. Golding, as you know, served between 2007 and 2011 and introduced and advanced a series of state governance, anti-corruption, and legislative initiatives designed to enhance accountability, transparency, and economic development. And so what were some of those? He led on issues of legislative and anti-corruption reforms. He pushed for key legislation, including prime ministerial term limits, which we're still working towards and hoping for. He pushed for the establishment of a special prosecutor for corruption and whistleblower protection laws, which actually are in place, although we are observing and utilizing it, or perhaps underutilizing it and failing to enable it to have the effect it can. Mr. Golding finalized the long-standing Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, a charter which went over and above the rights and freedoms of the initial independence constitution and has afforded us rights and freedoms like the right to a healthy environment, which we saw the courts rule upon recently in the Bengal case. Were it not for the constitutional provision of the right to a healthy environment, that case would not have had anywhere to go, much less to be successful. Mr. Golding initiated the Jamaica Debt Exchange, which was an important, in 2010, the initial activities in relation to that, an important step in the current framework that we have of fiscal responsibility and good governance. He endorsed and launched Vision 2030, our National Development Plan. And he established the Constituency Development Fund, which continues to be a source of community-level improvement, although it is an imperfect mechanism. And I could go on, but I want to share one last. Participatory governance. Participatory democracy is an extremely necessary and important configuration of our democratic process. Many would say to us that democracy is a function of voting every 5 years, and then we, the citizenry, should remain quiet, should not try to insert ourselves into the decision-making process. Well, Mr. Golding thought differently. And so he, at the smaller level, introduced the Jamaica House Live series. Who remembers that? The first time that we could pick up the phone and directly call and say, Mr. Bonding, so and so and so and so. But you know, he did so much more. And so, could I ask you please to welcome Mr. Orit Bruce Golden.
Carol didn't outdo herself, she outdid me. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Jeanette for allowing me to be involved on this occasion. The significance of this event must not in any way be overlooked. Indeed, its value ought to have required that it be launched at the national arena, not the Ligini Club. But like everything in life's creation, you start small and then you grow big. The Jamaican character is a very robust one. It is defined so much by our history, our culture. We have so many things that have been planted in our DNA. We move with seamless alacrity from merriment to anger. We complain a lot. And there is no shortage in Jamaica of people who say that nothing not go on. Things not right. And one of the things that worries me is that level of dissatisfaction, discontent, is increasingly reflecting itself in citizen alienation. When the elections were held in 2020, we had a turnout of 39%. 39% of eligible voters. Take out those on the voters list whom may have died or migrated. It is still well below 50%. But I had tended to rationalize that was because the 2020 elections were held in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And naturally, there were persons who would be uninclined to go to large gatherings to vote. But come 2025, when there was no COVID, Melissa had not yet arrived, the turnout fell to 37%, which says that less than 4 out of every 10 registered voters were inclined to go to decide who should govern their lives for the next 5 years. It is worrying because, you have an election and you count the votes, and whoever gets more seats wins, and they become the government. But when you end up with a government, whichever party forms that government, that effectively was voted into office by 20% of the electorate, it sends a worrying signal because it goes to the heart of the legitimacy of that government. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that the government is under any stress in terms of its authority. What I do say is that it is increasingly reflecting or solidifying this notion that causes us to refer to the government not as our government, but as the government them. As if the government is some alien entity that without authority rules over us. I come back to the symptom because it's not the cause, it's the symptom. The dissatisfaction, our inclination to complain and to carp and to grumble. And you know, some of the grumbling is justified. But so very often, when you try to pin down, well, what are you grumbling about? You have difficulty in getting to the point where you can say, no, all right, now let's see how we resolve it. And a lot of that has to do with lack of information. People complain, they jump on the call-in program, and very often it is because they just have not had the benefit of information. And then there is something else. Citizens, those of them who do, they go to the polling station and they vote. And then it's maybe 5 years' time before they get another chance to do that. In between the 5 years, for so many of us, the execution of our responsibilities as citizens is to pick up the phone and call Sefiu or call Emily Crooks and just unburden ourselves. And it gives us a kind of therapeutic reaction. We feel that, well, we have done our job. How we cuss off some people. We make up noise. And that's the end of our citizen, our civic engagement. And this is why I'm so glad to be here today, because JAMP has provided a toolkit that enables us, those of us who will be minded to make use of it, enables us to track the performance of our public officials. I can say government, but government is such a broad umbrella. It is the various institutions, the various agencies, to track their performance, their operations, their expenditures, the commitments that they have made, and how have they delivered on those commitments, their accountability requirements, the extent to which they are coming up front and saying, no, here is how we have done. And interestingly, when I looked at it 2 days ago, very user-friendly. And it is segmented in such a way that you don't have to go through the maze of Hope Garden to find what you may be interested in. You can go exactly to where your concerns may lead us. And that lends to a more informed citizen. But I'm still not as sanguine as I would like to be, because I'm going to harass Jeanette over the next couple of months to find out how many people have gone on to the website. You know, so many people harass me, including the Prime Minister, the Governor General, P.J. Patterson. You're not writing a book. And I asked them the question, who will read it? Why are you putting me to all that effort for it to, you know, people will come to the launch and they will want to get an autographed copy of it, and then it goes home and it sits on a bookshelf. You know, in the assignments that I'm involved in these days, I have a lot of Zoom meetings. And most of the people that are on the Zoom meetings with me, they are seated at a desk, and behind them is this wonderful bookshelf with a whole heap of books. And I keep asking myself, I wonder how many of those books they have read, or whether it's just decoration. But I'm going to be interested to find out how many people, which also means, Jeanette, you have a responsibility, you have to promote it. Because, you know, people won't know about it simply because of the soundbite that come out of this event. So it has to be promoted, it has to be advertised so that people can be aware that this is a facility that they can use. So I really want to commend the people who have been involved. First of all, Jeanette, because she has been the pioneer in this effort. She's not the only person in the media, on the radio, who talks about questions of accountability and compliance and so on. But I'll say this. She has been a credible voice in terms of advocacy. And her stance for good governance is something that has been recognized. Importantly, in all her interventions, she has been completely nonpartisan. Some of them may go off the bend, but neither the PNP nor the JLP would be able to accuse Jeanette Calder of being biased towards or against any or either of them. And that is something that I think, and I don't need to say it because Jeanette, I'm sure, knows, that is something that has to be so jealously and vigorously protected. Because if that ever falls into question, there goes the credibility on which all of this effort relies. I'm impressed as well that in the exchanges that I've seen her engaged in, she has been factual. Not based on some news report or some social media posting, but she speaks based on the fact that she has been able to get her hands on. And as I said, she has always been fair and objective. And I think, I think this is why she has been able to secure the kind of support and sponsorship that she has. When you're sponsored by some blue chip, reputable private sector companies in Jamaica, them not putting them name and nothing, that where the integrity of the effort is in any way subject to questions. And as well, the international sponsorship that she has been able to secure from the European Union, which I know places a lot of value on citizen involvement and civil society engagement. As well, the United Kingdom Department of International Development, and I want to thank both of them for joining and partnering with us in this endeavor. Importantly, JAMP has not sought to establish its own rules and criteria and then say to the government, now these are our rules, you must conform to these. What they have done is to pull together the established framework that deals with processes, accountability, reporting, compliance, regulations. So what JAMP is basically saying, these are not our rules, these are your rules. And all what we are seeking to do is to measure the extent to which you are abiding by the rules that you and your parliament and your laws have prescribed. And no doubt, from time to time, JAMP may find it necessary to say, well, look, these rules, these regulations may not go far enough, and you may need to consider doing the following. But in terms of checking the boxes, in terms of giving the grades, JAMP is proceeding on the basis of the rules that have already been set. Now, I don't think I need to warn you that you mustn't expect unanimous approval. Janet, whenever you have to make public presentations, don't put into your speech space for the applause, because it may not be forthcoming. But give the speech nonetheless. The truth is that, and I say so having spent 50 years in public service and worked with people in civil service, in the statutory agencies, public officials do not instinctively embrace oversight and monitoring. It's not, after you are sworn in at King's House and you go down to your ministry, you don't put on your agenda, now bring in all of these oversight people so that they can see what I'm doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're involved in wrongdoing, It is just that very often they feel that, look, I was put here to do a job. Just leave me alone and let me do the job. Some of them find that it is a humbug, an inconvenience, intrusion on the exercise of their function. But we have to keep not just impressing upon them, but in truth and in fact, we have to create an awareness among the public that keeping an eye on your government is good. It is something that is worthwhile doing. So I welcome this initiative. It's important for citizens to be able to assess and to determine and to come to an informed position based not on their emotions, but based on the empirical data that is available as to how the government is performing and what they can expect over the next 5 years. I looked at it 2 days ago. For example, I saw where commitments, how many commitments were made, how many have been fulfilled, how many are in the works, how many not yet kept, and in some instances, how many not answered, which means that they didn't bother to pick on you. I was disappointed, quite frankly, at some of the ministries that evidently had not responded. And it don't look good. And sometimes you have to name and shame. And I hope that some of them will recognize that, look, it don't look good to have 0, 0, 0 on your scorecard in terms of how you report. There's an area that it does not appear to me that the portal covers, and perhaps understandably so. You know, it deals with how much money you got, how have you spent that money, how have you complied with the procedures, procurement, and so on. An important area, and this is what I think generates so much of the calls to the talk shows, the delivery of services and the quality of those services. And I say that recognizing that maybe JAMP should not go there. Maybe that's a job for something else, because it may compromise the credibility and the factuality of JAMP's work. But it's an issue that needs to be determined as well. It's all right for you to tell me that, well, look, you know, them awarding the contract properly and that they're spending the money right, but my road still don't fix. And, you know, we may need to look to see how can we bring that to within some kind of citizen-friendly assessment mechanism. So let me commend you, Jeanette. I know it has not been easy, you know. And I know sometimes you may have been overcome by frustration. And sometimes you ask yourself, what are you doing this for? But every country, if it is to develop, need people like you. And therefore, I commend you, and I commend the team that you have assembled around you. I once again thank the entities, both here and internationally, who have supported and sponsored this endeavor. Keep doing what you're doing. I have 6 grandchildren, and I want to make sure that the Jamaica that they live in is a little better than the one that I found, and you're going to help me to get that satisfaction. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause. I am delighted to be here this morning. I was in Barbados up to yesterday at the IDB Sustainability Conference on Corporate Governance. And last night was the closing beach party in Speightstown. And I missed it because I had to be here this morning. So understand how committed I am. And I love me a beach party. But I am here. So while I was in the room, the investors, the international investors, spoke about what they needed in order to invest in a country. What did they tell us? They need stable and responsive governments. They need stable regulatory environments which they can trust. And you heard how many times this morning you heard the word trust. And it came up over and over again. And some of these investors, like they were talking about copper mines, and they said that when we invest in this, there is 30 years before we get a return. We need to know that the regulatory environments, the entities that we're dealing with, that things are not just going to change on a dime and on a whim. We need to know we can trust the people we are dealing with. They want to see governance standards that meet their expectations and align with their requirements before they put up their money. And they want to see that in the businesses that they're going to invest in, as well as the countries where they're putting their money. The PSOJ has worked long and hard to ensure a receptive business environment. So in Jamaica, we have gone to great lengths to establish a strong governance framework. And I want to start with our listed companies, because in Jamaica, we have the Jamaica Corporate Governance Code that sets out the rules and the practices, the guardrails. Then we went further and we developed a toolkit, because we said, some of you are not going to go read that governance code. Here is an abridged version of it. And here is a toolkit where we give you the sample documents. Here is a sample board charter. Here is a sample terms of reference for your audit committee, your finance committee. We have given you a base that you can use. Now we have a similar framework in public sector, the corporate governance framework for public sector bodies. We have our PBMA. But we went further in the private sector and we said, having done all of that, as former PM asked Jeanette, how do we know whether it's making a difference? So the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and we work closely with them, they have a corporate governance index. And I want to recognize Dr. Twilla May Logan, who is looking up like, what is wrong with me? Who leads the team of analysts that goes through and they measure every single listed company against their compliance with corporate governance. And can you show that slide for me? Because we have seen, this is what we have seen. We started this in 2017, and this is a JSE tool. And at that time, only 4% of those entities scored between A and AA. In fact, none were at AA. Today, the number of listed companies who are rated A and AA for their governance compliance has moved from 4% to 30%. What gets measured gets done. Measure what matters. And I have public sector entities like Grace Kennedy and Panjam in the room who lead the listed companies in terms of their compliance with governance. So we said to ourselves, here we are in Jamaica. We have 140 public bodies. And you and I know when we get up in the morning, we want NWC to be a rip-roaring, well-organized body, because when we turn that tap, we want water to bathe. When we need to go to NHF to do any business, we want to know that they are ensuring that the pharmaceuticals that we need are in the pharmacy, so we can use our little card that they give you in 15 minutes to go and get what we need. We need our public bodies to perform well because it affects all our lives. So we said we needed to take the same approach with public bodies that we were taking in private sector. We can take on this side. The other thing I should point out is that the number who were rated, not rated, and CC, the ones that we couldn't measure, they in 2017 were at 26%. So the very odd, the bottom ones. Now that has dropped to 10%. So you see it improving on both sides. Because this index was never about gotcha. We want every entity in Jamaica to hit 100%. That's our aim. It's to encourage you to improve. But I had digressed. So we can move that slide down. So we're back now with our public bodies. So we said, how are we going to encourage these public bodies? So we launched the Public Bodies Awards because everybody likes to get a prize. And so we said, come, apply. Tell us how well your public body is doing. And we have about 140 public bodies. you probably get 17 of them to apply. They don't bother to apply. The ones who apply are the ones who are doing well. But we want to move beyond just the ones who are doing well. Because in our Jamaica, we can be very proud. We have our PBMA, our Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act. We have our FAA. We have our PBMA regulations. We have our Corporate Governance Framework for Public Bodies. We've got laws and we've got regulations. But we want to ensure that our entities are actually following those laws and regulations. Because if they're following the laws and regulations, their governance will be better. And if their governance is better, their operations will be better. And if their operations will be better, we will be better. So we said, we need an index. And we need something where you don't have to apply. We will score you whether or not you apply. So the index was in our thought and our desires. But we didn't know how to. This keeps cutting out. Okay. Am I doing something wrong? No. Okay. All right. So we didn't know how to do it. So we went to wonderful Jeanette and wonderful JAMP. And she had also at that point been working with her own idea as to how to track these things. So we pulled together a little team from the PSOJ. And ladies, I would like you to stand and be recognized, please. And they're making up their faces. Simone Pearson, Twilla May Logan, Dr. Carolyn Hale. So academia, public sector, private sector. And we worked with Jeanette. And we said, nobody elected us, nobody voted for us, but there are all these laws. So we're going to take all these laws and we're going to put them there and see, are the entities complying with their own laws? And that is what the Public Bodies Tracker is. Points are assigned, and based on those scorings, grades are assigned. Just like with private sector. Because with private sector, we don't ask them to apply either. You're a listed company. We're rating you. Jeanette is going to walk you through the tool. 38 entities are going to be presented to you today. These entities were selected based on their expenditure budgets. All the entities that we have measured have expenditure budgets in excess of $2 billion. That's a lot of our money that they're spending, right? I could do with a little $2 billion. The composite budget for the 38 public bodies is $810.4 billion. This represents 93% of the total, really 93.1% of the total expenditure budget for public bodies. So even though we have 100 and odd public bodies, these 38 represent over 93% of the spend of public bodies. Now we plan to drop that from 2 billion down to 1 billion, but we're not quite there yet, but it will come soon. So what you're going to see presented today is the first iteration that will be tweaked in the future and going forward. From the PSOJ perspective, we are delighted that this tracker is now here because you will be able to go on. Everybody in Jamaica will be able to go on and see how is this particular public body complying with our laws. In addition to the public bodies tracker, we're also launching the sectoral tracker today, and that was all Jeanette. And you're going to hear more about that. But that tracker closes the loop as this measures whether or not ministers have complied with the promises they have made to the public each year during the budget process. From the sectoral debate presentations, JAMP identifies significant legislative, policy, and programmatic commitments made across all ministries. Relying on the provisions of the Access to Information Act, JAMP obtains confirmation from each ministry on the status of these commitments, whether fulfilled, not fulfilled, or ongoing. And our former PM spoke a little bit about that tracker. Now, this tracker will provide a credible basis on which the public can measure ministerial performance. And as was said earlier, we in Jamaica like to say, not nagwan. We like to think that everything is at zero. But this tracker is going to show you that there are ministries, there are public officials who are complying. So we can't always tear down. We also have to celebrate those who are doing well, because the aim is for everybody to get AE, for everybody to get 100%, because then we, the citizens, benefit. So with the 2 trackers being launched today, JAMP is tracking compliance by public bodies with the laws and regulations. And with the sectoral tracker, they will track whether commitments made by central government to us, the public, are being kept. Colleagues, when I stand at podiums internationally, I feel proud when we talk about governance, because Jamaica is introduced as leading in governance. The rest of the Caribbean is there saying, how soon can you send us the tracker? How soon can you share what you've done? They've taken our code and they've modeled it. It needs revision. So we're going to be going to our donors and saying, we need to revise. Jamaica is on an upward trajectory in governance. But on the private sector side, that must be accompanied by the public sector improvements. And we need all of you to join us today in sharing the information you're going to get here, in letting the citizens know that these trackers exist and we can actually speak based on facts as to how our leadership and our government is performing. So it is my sincere pleasure at this time to invite to the podium the lady, the founder and executive director of JAMP, the national treasure, Jeanette Calder. Yes, I'm up here. I can say what I believe, to demonstrate the trackers to you this morning. Jeanette Calder.
Wow. 11:05. We're doing good for time. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It really has been a wonderful setup so far that, there's not much for me to do but to jump right in, right, Nadia? And I know that's the plan, but it would be very hard for me to do that without just adding my own share of thank yous. When I really just scan the room, it's really amazing to be standing here and to see the folks representing, and not just JAMP, but Jamaica. Gail almost made me cry, because Gail started off with that anecdote, about me going down to the PSOJ, probably looking like I had it all together, Gail, when I really didn't. And really finding her friendly face there, it really meant the world to me. And I never forgot it. And I'm happy to know that Gail hasn't forgotten it either. But that is really just to say the simplest things along the way, were really a long and a far way. And because I've had some of those very simple gestures of encouragement, ranging from a smiling face just nodding at me. Not quite. Yes, ranging from just someone in a room who you've never met before, just nodding in endorsement, and the residue that leaves on you and the residue that continues. Because Gail, our former Prime Minister, is correct. There have been those moments when I've really had to ask myself a few questions more regularly than I care to admit. So that residue is important, but it ranges from that to our donors who really help put in quite a bit of funds. I think we should call it out. We're benefiting correctly from as much as $75 million from the European Union. So that's not chicken feed. And that I really think is a testament to saying this is an investment and we're expecting to see the returns. And I think the room indicates that such is the case. But I really do want to say before jumping in that I really have to give thanks to the fact that I really couldn't do this. There's the financial resources that you need. There are emotional resources that you need, Claudia. Intellectual resources that you need. But I really could not do this without spiritual resources. I am a praying woman and I have really had to, find my knees. And the positive part of this is I came home in 2012, very excited after living abroad for a while, on the invitation of the government of Jamaica, to join the team at the Development Bank of Jamaica, to really contribute in an area I was contributing abroad, which is in public-private partnership in delivering physical infrastructure. And I came back home very excited, but government, 13 months after them said we must come, sitting there by myself. So I had to get busy. And at the time, there was a new civil society body, you recall, the Jamaica Civil Society Coalition. And procurement is my baby. Public funds really mean a lot to me because I've been in government and I've seen the difference it can make, And so when I saw the coalition struggling to wrap their heads around some things, I thought, let me Jim Screechy in and see if I could help them with some talking points, because I came home to go back to government. You really couldn't get up the front. But the advocacy bug bit hard. And I really thought that public sector work doesn't mean that I'm going into signing as a public servant. And it became redefined as advocacy for me. So I also want to recognize my chair, Carol Narcisse, who's here. She's been a mentor from day one. Carol, actually, even before I met you, I've been tracking you through the news. So I am just wanting to say thank you very much to everyone in particularly who could make this possible. Now, I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint, and while I'm doing that, I'm foregoing today because I'm hoping most persons have heard a little bit of the history of JAMP and why we do what we do. So in order to jump right in, I wanted to recognize, though, someone who also left a lot of residue on me back in 2013 and still does. This is a very old Gleaner archive PDF that I want to pull your attention to. It said they're Jamaica's Joan of Arc. I don't know if by saying that you would automatically know who I'm referring to, but the person it is referring to is actually buried in Hero Circle. And I remember when I took my godkids there, they were about 10 and 6, and they asked me, who is this? And I was kind of shocked that most Jamaicans have no idea who this person is, even though she's buried in Hero Circle. But I'm going to flip over and show you who she is and why she has affected this journey so much. I know. But I just had to point out something at the top of the newspaper on May the 31st, 1938. Do you see how the Gleaner labeled this story? Women's activities, and then followed by incidentally of interest to men. So ladies, we have come a very long way. But I think the date should give you a clue. Think about it. May the 31st, 1938. Anybody want to guess who I'm talking about? What happened in 1938? May we're practically in the 88th year of celebrating her. This lovely lady, Agnes Bernard. And I just want to briefly say, without going into the story, I want to encourage you to look her up when you go home. But in 2013, when I came back home and I had this question on my heart about where we're going, I went to the National Library and spent a lot of time there reading reports from the 40s coming into the 30s. And this is a lady who, at a very important point in our history, and she would not have known it then, decided to do something sacrificial, and I will leave it at that. But Aggie Bernard was simply a lady with a soup kitchen down on Harbour Street who would launder when the banana boats came in and make a little extra money. In short, this was the labor riots of 1938 that changed. 100 years exactly after slavery, we felt that we weren't getting anywhere, and there were riots all across the Caribbean because the It was just similar. And Aggie Bernard stepped into the gap and did something that it just was about complete faith. Nothing of what she planned to do made sense and was logical. We leave it at that for now. But what I will mention before going on is this. It was a complete act of faith on her part. But more importantly, what Aggie did, or the mark she left on the landscape of Jamaica, was not possible had others not stepped in to support once they saw her step out. And so by reading this in 2013 and never getting over the fact that I did history, A-level, nobody taught me about this woman. Buried her in the Hera Circle, called her the Joan of Arc a couple of days after. It bothered me that our young people haven't been told what I think the message here is really about, that one person can make a difference, but you're not going to go far without the others coming, right? So that is really what, as God would have it, the story I started off with as an inspiration, but I'm actually now living it. It's a matter of stepping out with the same question that Aggie Bernard asked herself in May of 1938, which is, what if? That's simple as that here. What if? So in 2017, when I prayed about all I had learned, sitting on my orange hassock at home and saying, what should I do with all that I've learned since I've been with the Jamaica Civil Society Coalition? Boy, Lord, I'm broke and I cannot continue to be this broke. I'm not used to it. What can I do that will be meaningful but cover the bills? And within a month, and it's not just prayer, guys, it's prayer, faith, and works. Within a month, this idea was born. So I really want to honor Aggie Bernard in literally the 88th week of what she did for us, and hope that with just telling the story, it will inspire some of the younger ones in the room with the question simply, what if? Yeah? However, there is one other person I would not feel good about not thanking, because this is the next thing that I thought left a lot of impact in processing this idea of a JAMP, a tracking. You notice the date again. This is the 26th of April, 2009, and it says Jamaica's budget, difficult decisions in challenging times. And just by looking at the date, for those of us who pay attention, would have a really good idea as to who was in the house at the time. Anybody want to guess? Who was leading the country at the time? Oh, I'm sorry. What's happening here, guys? I've actually moved on. 1 second. Thank you for that. Let me close the PowerPoint. So what might help. Yes. Right. So this is a very old Gleaner article back in 2009. And I think none other than the person who preceded me, Mr. Golding, was actually at the helm. I wasn't living in Jamaica at the time, but you pay more attention to the news when you're not here, eh? And I never missed a beat. But what was significant about this, and I hope Mr. Golding remembers this, because boy, did it leave a lot of good stuff on me, is when I read about this tiny little thing here. This would have been Minister Shaw as our Minister of Finance. And it says here in this text, the ministries are also to benefit from, and it goes on. Let's pick up at the ministries are also to benefit from a public accountability inspectorate. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of it. Anybody? Okay. Responsible for reviewing reports tabled in Parliament. Sounds like anything I'm doing now and the team is doing now. Yes, Andrew. And ensuring that the recommendations are followed and implemented. The PAI will also assist ministers in the investigation of issues as necessary in order to promote accountability and transparency. And I never know nothing about this PAI, but it lodged in my brain back there in the winter cold of 2009. Suffice it to say, when I came home and did some research, eventually with the support of the European Union, on Jamaica's accountability framework, I ran into this document in the pursuit of understanding Jamaica's accountability framework. As it says here, the role and the function of the Public Accountability Inspectorate Division. Now, folks, let me tell you something. I got excited when I saw that today, but I'm going to draw your attention to this very paragraph that says, under its terms, let's blow it up big for you. You notice the first word, Auditor General, and the PAC follow-up, ringing in the bells there now. Yes. And it said here, when I read this back in 2016, to keep detailed record of all the points raised by the Auditor General, that was Mr. Adrian Strawn at the time, his recommendations, along with all the decisions of the PAC, ensuring that all such decisions and recommendations are carried out by the relevant government entity, and if not, to refer the matter to the Financial Secretary, along with recommendations for appropriate action. Sound like anybody, today. The point I'm really trying to make, and I have whispered it the only time I've had an opportunity before now, whispered it in the ear of Mr. Golding, but I really just wanted to recognize publicly that this PAI and this idea that he had, that we can't afford to have the investment that our oversight bodies have as citizens, give them to us, and it becomes a talking point for a couple of days and weeks, the 9-day wonders. So JAMP really began inspired predominantly by this one idea that we have a responsibility, having invested our money in those oversight bodies, that we have a responsibility to take the baton and carry it further. So I've built on this, Mr. Rowling. I want to say to the folks in the room, which might shock you, I've been at it now for 13 years. This was a small department of about 6 to 10 people at the Ministry of Finance, with a budget, I remember them telling me at the time, of 35 million. At the time, the Auditor General was a little under $500 million. And this is the only entity that I know of where on the backs of their reports, we have removed the most senior of public officials as administrative sanctions for breaches and infractions of the rules and protocols. $35 million investment. And I'll just quickly remind you, when the BOJ, Mr. Latibody, Student Loan Bureau, Executive Director, on the back of their reports, even the President of UTEC was on the back of their reports. So what I'm really saying is that when we have a parliament, let me put it that way, that is as committed as I believe the one led by Mr. Golding is, there's much that we can do with this. So I really just had to step back to make a connection between sometimes the things that we do, and we think nothing much has come of it because that inspectorate barely exists anymore, and most of us may have never heard of it. But you never know what that thing that you do, that policy that you have, invested in, how it is resurrected in another shape and form, which is what brings us now this morning to the question of the public bodies trackers. Now, as Nadia said, this is basically our homepage where we now have situated 6 trackers. The accountability meter is the only one I'm going to comment on here because this is the one that ties in directly back to what Mr. Golding had in mind in 2009 that was started by the then Minister of Finance. And as we have read reports from our oversight bodies and as we learn of the challenges they have faced, and as we understand better the information needs, we build another tracker. So these trackers really began with the accountability meter, which is taking the Auditor General's recommendations, tracking them through the power of the Access to Information Act. The best kept secret, if you ask me, in governance, to be very frank with you, but using that and leveraging that in a way any citizen can to build out another 6. And here at the bottom, we have what is an access to information tool, which makes it so much easier than when we started out. Now, for the public bodies tracker that Camille so easily gave us the setup for. But just about with any one of JAMP's trackers, it really is about, as she says, if you don't measure and if you don't score, it just begins to modify behavior immediately. It's human nature, and that's what we're working with. So we have 156 public bodies right now, and I really want to commend the government. When JAMP started out, it was 222, and the government had a policy to rationalize them to save money, and they have done an amazing job, and they continue to do so. Coming down from 222 to 156. Now, as Camille says, we can't take up a bite of a cherry of 156. We don't think it's necessary in order to achieve what we have in mind. So we have set a target which captures any public body, any of the 156 that's currently having a budget of more than $2 billion. And that's 38 out of the 156. And as you can see, there's a summary to Well, my left and on your right, where 29 of them are currently being assessed, and we will continue to build out because that's how we do the trackers. We know wait, we start and we get going. Now, the Ministry of Finance, and I should pause to really say that this really would not be possible without a government that is cooperating with citizens. This is really a public and private and citizen partnership. The budget tool, if you really pause and check it out, is really unique in the sense that the Ministry of Finance about 3 years ago decided to give JAMP access to a level of detail of its budget that had never been given to citizens before. That's the government. That's the government of Jamaica. That's a level of transparency that's amazing. So if there are any farmers in here and you want to know who's buying pigs, the government's budget, you type pigs in JAMP's Trapper, it comes up. You know exactly how much money the government going to spend on pigs and which ministry, you know, who to pitch your argument to. I'm just giving you an example. How much are we spending on phone calls? How much are we spending on airplanes? That is a level of minutiae that can be a game changer if we really start to do our part. So similarly here, the Ministry of Finance breaks up their public bodies that they're monitoring into 3 categories. And I think they're very helpful. The ones that are fully financed by us, they depend on all of our taxes. The ones that don't need a penny from us, these are robust state enterprises that actually at the end of a year give back money into the coffers of government, which means less taxes we're paying when they do well. And I say that quickly because people have a way of thinking that the public bodies, you know, that's that we're more interested in what central government is doing. No, we own them. And the better they do is the less taxes we pay. That's how I put it. So there are those fully financed by taxes, and squat in the middle there are those that's a hybrid. They get some from government and they earn some. They get some, I prefer to say, from the public. So we also reflected how the Ministry of Finance views these bodies by breaking them up and assessing them as those fully financed by taxes, self-financed, and those that are partial. Below, you will find, and we're trying to do this as a best practice on all of our trackers, but we've been getting good feedback, and so we've incorporated this immediately into the public bodies tracker, whereby we have some reports. Some folks kind of just, I mean, a researcher just want to come and know who I do the worst around, who I do the best. You know, that's how we are. So we made it a little easy by creating what we call some pop-over results. For example, if our eyes on the money, and this was a suggestion the PSOJ team came up with, why don't we look at those with the biggest budgets and see how they are doing? So we have some quick sidebars here where you can see who are the top performers, as well as, let's start the truth, who are the worst performance. Below are all the resources that we draw on to make the tracker possible: corporate governance framework, the Financial Administration and Audit Act, the money, so the budget will always be there, and the legislation that deals directly with these state bodies, the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act. And because we love to educate and inform, each of our trackers come with the different animated videos to break things down in a friendly way so people can begin to see the relevance of what they're looking at. Now, I'm just going to demonstrate very quickly because this is 2 pages. But the why behind it, again, it's been inspired a lot by the Auditor General's Department that takes what we call a risk-based approach to finding out. 331 is what they call their audit universe that you cannot do in any given year. So where do we focus? So they take a risk-based analysis, and we thought, is there a way in which we could help the Auditor General to zone in on the ones where there's an environment that could be creating, I would say, an opportunity for mismanagement, inefficiency, waste, fraud, and corruption. And so this is really a traffic light system. That's all it's really intended to be, to flag a warning, not only for the boards who might not be paying attention, who could come to JAMP's track and say, hold on a minute, I thought we were doing better, but for the financial secretary, but for the cabinet secretary, whole of government. And it simply begins with the filter here. All of the ones that we are currently tracking, you can just scroll. But if you know exactly what you're coming for, if you're looking at it from a funding perspective, if you're looking at it from a particular ministry, you can select and zone in. I'm always interested in the compliance section. What if author was just interested in all those failing? You could just hit that button. And of course, you can just put in the search for a particular entity that you are interested in. So Ika, who do you think I could try for the demonstration? Which would you recommend? NHT. NHF, the National Health Fund. All right, good. We have some crowd participation here. The nice thing is you don't have to type it out, NHF, and you hit that good. Well, you think you need to hit the search button. It automatically brings you to it. You hit a few details, and these are the findings. So beautifully, you see that animated meter that says 88%. Hey, listen, I want to say this. Camille might be wanting to jump up to say, about 5 years ago, the NHF was nowhere near this. Yes, major transformation that took place, and they never fire. They never fire people. What they put in was what? Strong governance team. I believe Howard Mitchell was there at the time and left behind an amazing technical CEO. So what you have here will always be an overview of the public body, with a little bit of read more, focusing on the funds. We really believe that citizens need to get involved. So whatever you read here, remember now, you can reach out immediately. There's a link to the website, your contact information. And I have been a big believer from day one, Kurt, that we should know the people who are paying to make these decisions. So we have always wanted to remove that veil of anonymity. If you book them up in the supermarket, you should be able to say, boy, I hear JAMP bigging you up in the National Health Fund. Mr. Anderson, I never noticed you that. I see you in front of me in the line and I want to say thank you. So we will always show you who is the head of the agency, who is the board chair, who is the minister with responsibility, and who is the accounting officer as the four, responsible and accountable. And what you have on the right, by no means, is an exhaustive look at what the government has put in place to ensure that these public bodies are creating an environment where they can thrive. I started out with selecting 24 indicators, and by the time Camille and team was done, we had 35. So I'm just going to click this button here that says show all the indicators with categories, and it will expand it to give you a bird's eye view of all the indicators that we are looking at. Quickly, board composition, governance structure. Let me just zoom in a little bit and try and center this so that we can have a better view of it. Board composition, the governance structure, the audit and internal control, reporting and compliance, and ethics and behavior. Really good categories, if I may say so myself. We won't be able to go into detail, but I just want to give you a pretty, a comment on each. So naturally, every single indicator here is not equally important. So it is subjective, and JAMP has a menu at the top that speaks to our methodologies, where you will be able to go and find out what we do, how we actually do. That's odd. Let's say that false. Oh, there, right, bottom. That will guide you as to what is our methodology, and we're always open to feedback. So we have to put a weighting banner on each of the indicators because, So for instance, the board having requisite skills as per the competency profile that the government has put in place, I would argue it's very important. As much as the gender sensitivity is important, we would say that would be given a bigger score than whether or not that board is reflecting the ratio of male to female on it. So we had very robust discussions that went on for a long time. But let me tell you something, Twilla, Carolyn, and Simone, I mean, I could not have done it without you because they come with the corporate governance expertise, which we really needed. The governance structure, I didn't know why a board charter was a big deal. I saw it, but until you put one in your hands and you see what government has asked them to create, you will be really impressed. Now, this one for me is a biggie. Non-executive independent chair. We have had one or two where the chairman is also the CEO. And the government said, no. So this is one that if it exists, it's going to really weigh down your score because that has got to go. Audit and internal control. You have to have an audit committee. And some of you will remember flashback. Just think about Yui while we're here. I want it to be practical. I want you to look at some of the things that we're dealing with. University, hospital. It's very important. Thank you, Tula. So just as we scroll through, you will see how useful this would have been. Had we have it at the time, we could have flagged this, 5 or 10 years ago, maybe. But an audit committee cannot include a board chair, and it cannot include the procurement committee chair for good governance. Train the procurement committee. Does it have an annual procurement plan? I'm very, 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 very big on reporting and compliance. And as you can see, this is one of the few areas where the National Health Fund has a big X. You have heard Trevor Monroe, and you might have heard myself laboring over the fact that the Cabinet Office tells you about all the public bodies. There are 164 bodies right now in a table where only 8 are compliant. There's a simple principle that said if I give Claudia $1,000 to go buy a patty, Claudia has to come back with what? The patty, the receipt, and my change. It's just basic when you're dealing with people money. So the idea that people are collecting billions of our money and don't feel the need to come back and tell you is just mind-boggling to me. And last but by no means least is ethics and behavior. This is where things like a whistleblowing policy is in place, corporate social governance policy, a donations policy. So this is in essence what we have called from all the documents and weeks of much debate as to which would be the most important, but we remain open to any and everybody who thinks we overlooked something. I also want to speak to a gentleman called Dorian Williams. He's really the IT guy behind all of what you're seeing here. And Dorian has been with us since 2018. I remember we didn't have any money in the beginning. This is a gentleman who would come home from work, meet me online at 9 o'clock, and we worked until 3 o'clock free. Yeah. So I hope Dorian is listening in. Yes. And he now has a company by the names of Three Wolves, but he's an amazing, amazing Jamaican who has really been there for us. So this is in essence what the public bodies tracker will look like, what it will be assessing. And I'm sincerely hoping that as when we leave here, part of what we will be doing is meeting with the different agencies to share with their corporate secretary. I'm happy to say that before JAMP, before we actually launched, we met with the Ministry of Finance's Public Enterprise Division so that they themselves would be comfortable endorsing Mr. Golding that this is really representing what the Ministry of Finance has put in place. But also we had the pleasure of meeting with the Permanent Secretaries Board. I don't know how many of us as Jamaicans know that the Permanent Secretaries meet every single week, face to face. So myself and Ika went, presented it, to which Mr. Golding, you know what Mrs. Sorrell said to me? But Jeanette, we're not doing so bad, you know. This is saying that you're not out there telling them that we're doing as good as we are. So we agree that that is part of why we're doing this, because we believe that it will demonstrate. When I was in government, man, there are some people that were carrying some heavy loads, doing some amazing work. So it's both sides of the coin. Yes, but the former public servant in me had to be in the room with the private sector people say, "Locks, man, chug," take up for them a little bit. Thank you very much for that, Camille. Now, as for the sectoral commitment tracker, and I really do appreciate Mr. Golding saying that the interface is fairly friendly. We have really tried our best to keep it simple. So what we just showed you a while ago were really 2 pages, but just repeating one after the other to demonstrate where folks are. It's the same thing with the sectoral commitment tracker. There are other promise trackers across the world. Not a lot. You're only able to find about 5. But with each and every one of JAMP's tools, they are customized for what we face here in Jamaica. So this is done with a little bit of difference from the ones that you will see. Now, as usual, we have a little blurb explaining why we're doing this and what is the use of it. So as Mr. Golding says, we start off with just an overall score, all of government score. Now, I know the first question that I will probably be asked, so I'm just going to pull this up really quickly to share with you, that we had attempted this in 2013 as the Jamaica Civil Society Coalition with the support of NIA, who funded this at the time. Now, if I blow up in the corner here, you'll see that it was just 108. No, it was just 35 promises that we were tracking. But what was different about this is that we took it from the manifesto, promises made electorally, did it translate to the throne speech, and then to see what was actually happening sectorally for that year. I still like that model very much, but I'm saying that this really did receive some really good feedback. I remember some members of the media saying, boy, we pinned it up in the newsroom and Miss Narcisse, who was really, the co-executive director with me at the time, in 2013. But then here is a version that we did with the support of the PSOJ in 2021-22. And now we have moved from 35 to 108 commitments. And I would meet citizens from time to time and ask them, we're tracking 108 commitments government made. How do you think the government is doing? I've never found a Jamaican that said more than 10%. That kind of broke my heart because, yeah, come on. It's the perception. So as Mr. Golding says, this is a tool that's really also going to be demonstrating that work is being done. Now, we translated this from just having it in the newspaper, one snapshot in time. If you miss the paper that day, you don't see it. So because we were going digital, we said to the EU, what if for the next support, we move from paper-based to digital? Part of it is because we're not going to be doing just a snapshot in time. It's going to be over the entire parliamentary term. Our government can have a bad year, but the next 2 years are good and it pulls them up over the entire term. So I am just sharing where we're coming from, so what it looks like digitally. So we have, again, an overall picture of 354 commitments this time. Now, when I was interviewed on air about it, one of the first questions we were asked is, how do you decide? Jeanette, are you cherry picking? Are you picking the ones the government is doing well on or not doing so well on? So one of the questions we had to come up with was how to approach it in a objective and non-subjective way. And we scratched our head because the whole budget is a promise. I call it a promise book, not a budget. I call it the pledge book, yeah? So we came up with this simple concept, which I really think works. After the budget, not before, when you can give any kind of laundry list of promises. After a budget, when government has allocated, placed it in legislation, each sector, each minister appears before the people in the people's house and says, this is what I am going to do for you for the next 12 months. We haven't decided. The minister has selected the flagship priorities, programs, legislative agenda, and says, this is what the next 12 months look like for the money you're giving us. So we said, aha, right, Nora? If it's coming from the minister's mouth, documented that these are the macro critical programs and projects, then that's what we will track. You have come and shared it with us, we will track it. So based on that approach, what it means is a lot more work. It's 354 commitments, and ICA has really labored long and hard. So overall, what we're looking at is 115 of the 354 kept. That's 32.5%. There's a quarter of that, 25%, 90 that's in progress, 73, 20% not kept at the end of a year, having had monies allocated. So that's a little concerning, not a little. And as Mr. Golding rightly says, 21% overall that has not responded to JAMP's legally backed access to information request. But the beauty of it is on the landing page, as you scroll down, you get to see a snapshot of every single solitary ministry and a legend that quickly tells you how they have done in terms of keeping. Now, in the middle is the number of, ICA, in the middle, the number of commitments, thank you. And then you can quickly see by the percentage how they are doing. So all we're going to do at this point is just to click on one of them and show you what it will look like. Education and youth. Any of the slots you click on takes you immediately to that response. So I clicked on kept. Always at the top, you will have the overall picture of government, but right below that, you see that band here, that is how the Ministry of Education is doing. So what does the legend tell you? Dark blue is kept. So almost 50% of the 18 in that sectoral presentation have been kept. A little under 40% in progress, 16.7% not kept. And we have here, well, I think it's run off the page. The commitments are actually listed there for the citizens who want to see what these promises were. So what we have done is not just to put the shortened version of it, but we have the extract of what the minister said taken from it. Listen, it has always been important to our board that JAMP places before the citizens the things that can be verified. And so instead of just putting the promise, we've actually placed the extract. So in the ministry's own words, you can see a little bit of what was intended. And there are some amazing projects that I learned about going through this that I'm like, wow, government, GIS, maybe not doing them justice. But what you're looking at here is kept because I clicked on kept. Now to your left, you see there is a a status of all the ones that you can click on. Suppose you wanted to move to those in progress, it automatically shifts to that for you. And if you are more a fuddy-duddy and want to go straight into accountability not kept, you will also see all the list. And it's only a list of 3 that the Ministry of Education actually has not kept. And if you go to all statuses, everything appears back on the screen. Now, in the Q&A, I would love to ask you some questions about what is the difference you think this could make. I know the difference I think having this documented could make. Whole of government, a sectoral snapshot. I'm only going to go back to the landing page because as I'm going to take the advice main page. I'm going to take the advice of Mr. Golding. I'm just going to scroll down a little slowly here. And you will note there's at least one that has the gray means no answers. So Simone, that means the Ministry of Health and Wellness has not answered one ATI request. And if I scroll down, other ministries can do it, so can they. You will hit another one, which is the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. I'm only going to ask Ika one question. What's the period, Ika, over which you have been asking for these questions to be answered? You can stop there, Ika. So it's just to give you an idea that this is not you have to answer in 30 days. You did not answer in 30 days. JAMP is out there saying. So that is in essence what both of these trackers look like, with one brief disclaimer. And the disclaimer is we did run into a little bit of technical hiccup with this tracker. We wanted to show you a comparison between this year, which is a little dated, and the last one, which would have been the previous financial year. We're having a difficulty. We still had to push through for today. So we're asking you to see this as a demo of where we're going, because this is actually the year 22-23. We wanted to have put last year up, and as soon as it is, we will let all our stakeholders know. But for the demonstration this morning, the data that you're looking at is from the year 22-23. So when we leave here today, this will not be accessible. The public bodies tracker will be. And as soon as we have sorted out the technical difficulties, we will be sure to let you know, and we will have it accessible from the website. Thank you very much, everyone. One last thing before I take my seat. There's one other person I really want to recognize who was born with me long and hard for the last 6 years. I visit my sister every Christmas, and she never sees me. And she complains about all the work I'm doing down in her basement. And I just want to say Janice is here today visiting. And I really want to thank her for all the complaints. We were on vacation in Nevada, I think last year, and I was there, called for proposal. I can't come, Janice, I'll soon be there. And she bore with me through it. So I'm really happy she could be here to share today with me. Thanks a lot, Jan.
Went up early, Nadia, and then I see you and I see you, sir. Yes.
In response to Jeanette, and it's where we hope some of the Q&A can go. But Gil and I have been sitting here brainstorming on usage.
Yes.
Right? You know, it's going on about maturity and how we all evolve. So we build the tools. Now we're at the season of utilization of the tools. So Gail says to me, my gosh, Nadia, Jeanette needs to come and present to my directors. And they need to understand the ways in which, for the different aspects of our group of companies, which includes manufacturing, includes finance. She's talking about Grace Kennedy. I serve on Jamaica Teas, which is a similar thing. Finance different from manufacturing. So there's so much that Jeanette could actually help core bodies to better understand the environment they're operating in. The other user case that we just brainstormed, because I said that's one thing, but we need to go mass, and we need young people. I personally am putting up my hand to speak with the incredible Lisa Vassiani, who's currently the head of department for government up at the university. Some of those entrance courses are all 200 students strong. Can you imagine if they had coursework where go to these tools, pick a user case, give us a piece of research, or come and do an animated presentation on something you are able to interrogate, investigate, and discover utilizing these tools? Then I'd want to capture them and do little YouTube snippets and send them out there as well. So the reason why I was so eager to put up the hand, Carol, is because we hope others are thinking about user cases for their neck of the woods or ones that they can facilitate because, of course, now the tools need to be utilized. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Janet, for your presentation. Tanisha Ingleton, Managing Director of the Heart and Estate Trust. The Public Bodies Tracker, it monitors compliance, and I've noted that it monitors commitments for the ministries. And I'm wondering, why isn't it that the ministries and the public bodies are not held to the same compliance-based standard? And what was said of NHF is just one example, because oftentimes the compliance of a public body is heavily dependent and contingent as well on the ministries, the responses, the speed with which they move when we have to send through certain things. And the NHF example is just one. And Heart does have its own example as well. So why is it that we are not all held to the same compliance-based standards? Thank you.
Very good question. And if I may just say that as Jeanette comes up to respond, that I wonder whether indicating that the public body has met their required reporting standard, they prepared the report, and then indicating what the next accountable entity has done with that information, which is the ministry that's supposed to table it, so that you have two lines for that, indicator. The line that says, did the public body put its report together and send it to the ministry? Yes or no? And then did the ministry table it in Parliament so that the two accountabilities are distinct? And so if that's possible, I think that would perhaps
Yes, so I think what I understood though is that you're saying the focus for the public bodies tracker are on public bodies, different entities from central government, and you're wondering why we're not focusing on the ministries in the same way. I think what I'm hearing there is another tracker. I'm kidding. Really kidding. I just have to admit that sometimes you start with where your hat can reach. And I think the definition for the public bodies are so much clearer in terms of a citizen's effort. I would like to see that, and I can say it openly because it was said openly at a town hall meeting where Mrs. Holness, MP Holness, as chairing that meeting at the time, shared that there's a new parliamentary website coming. And she said that, you know, she doesn't want to take tales too much out of school, but quite a bit of what we have done with the MP tracker has inspired what the parliament is going to be doing. I am hoping that what we have done with the public bodies tracker, which as I say is a little easier for citizens to be able to do, not easy, but easier, that perhaps the government will take a little leaf from what we're doing with the public bodies tracker and see if perhaps now, I'll take another little tale out of school. When they met with the Ministry of Finance, they did say to us, Camille was there, I think Simone was there, Twila, all of us were there. And I don't think they would mind me saying that they were happy that citizens were doing it, but one admitted that they had been trying to build such a tracker from the 1990s. And that really was sad, but encouraging to know the government had been trying and citizens have stepped in the gap. Now that we have done it, let me tie together one other quick story. When we met with the permanent secretaries, Mrs. Sewell actually said the government is moving in a more digital direction for information technology. So she said to all the permanent secretaries in the room, JAMP has shown us that this is not really insurmountable, She, as Mr. Golding said, it is easier than we thought. So what I'm really trying to say is citizens are demonstrating what is possible. Maybe government has been complicating it. So when they have seen how we're doing it, they're literally saying, but hold on, it can be done. So I'm hoping, Tanisha, that by virtue of starting with the public bodies tracker, that the government might decide that, look, this could work. And perhaps then they will move on to taking on the harder lift, which is central government. Yeah. Thank you.
The law, the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act, or the regulations. Now, we have had some phenomenal regulations passed in Jamaica. Regulations that say this is how your board must be comprised. 30% male, 30% female. When I'm on the board for, which is it? Contraception. It was only women. Like, it's we one have the children by ourselves. There were no men on that board. So there are things that we have in our laws now. You can't serve more than 2 terms. Various things like that. But it was important for us when we were doing the public bodies tracker to see, having put this framework in place, is it being complied with? So that was the aim for that. Whereas the sector is a focus on the commitments that have been made. But as Jeanette says, there will probably come a time, because all public bodies now have objectives. And so, but that would tie back into the ministries, because usually many of the ministries' objectives are achieved through public bodies.
All right. So let's thank you for that, Camille. Just so that we get as many questions in as possible in the time we have. I think, sir, you are next. This gentleman.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Cameron. Today I'm representing Advocates Network, although I've been advocating all my life, it seems. I am an independence baby. I was born a year before Jamaica's independence. Mm-hmm. The Honorable Prime Minister mentioned earlier that he had his fireside chats, which I thought was a very innovative way to engage the people. Mm-hmm. What is missing today, based on what I've seen over the years, is that there's a lack of accountability and consequences. Consequence is not aligned with accountability. As we've seen in the United States, there's been, there's a professed balance. That balance has not worked out because there's no consequence for bad behavior. We understand that it's illegal to fund, to buy votes in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. Yet still, there's no concern on the parts of the police department to ensure that votes are not being bought. And in the absence with that type of behavior, you're not going to get the government that we deserve.
So your charge, your call to action, your conclusion, or your question?
Well, my conclusion is that we need to, the first step is accountability. Mm-hmm. The next step is consequences. Many years ago, there was an issue in Mandeville where they had dust problem on the Mud Lake. I made a whole bunch of calls to different people. The only time I got results was to call Mutty Perkins. And he came on the air and he said, this is a problem. And I even called NEPA. And I said, why don't let's meet and have a discussion how to stop this problem.
Okay.
When I told him that he should be fired, was after many calls, that's when he came to meet to talk about. And now we have sprinklers on the Mud Lake. It ended up on Al Jazeera. And if people are not, you cannot shame the shameless. So there must be consequences.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And congratulations, Jeanette. You continue to inspire me in not just the work of PRE, but also the work I do heading a public body myself as chairman of the Bellevue Hospital. And my main thought your scorecard was, is somebody going to come in and give me some guidance on how I can score on all of these? I was literally looking at our draft board charter this morning and looking through it and thinking, I don't think we do this, I don't think we do this in our own board charter. And I just wonder if many of the public bodies like ours that are severely under-resourced have the capacity to meet these benchmarks, even though we would like to. That we would need some external support. I don't know where that's going to come from. And I would love
No, I'm saying that because it is one of the things that we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do we
as part of the service that we offer, how do we offer the actual training, the actual capacity?
But please pilot it with us. We will be happy to be your test case. And when you do, we can also talk about how you extend some of these ideas and variables and indicators to statutory bodies and executive agencies, because my engagement with both of those, governance and accountability and outcomes, are very, very difficult to work through with them.
Thank you for that, Anna. All right. Could I just see the hands of those who would like to ask a question so that we establish just how many more we have? All right, Nora, a brief comment. Carolyn, a brief comment. Yes. All right, sir. So we have that gentleman. Are you asking just 1 second? A question or a comment? A question. So I'm going to take the 2 questions first and then the 2 comments, and then we will wrap. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shamar Wedderburn. I'm representing today at Rise Life Management Services. And I'm giving a comment and charge as well. For those who don't know, RISE is an acronym that stands for Reaching Individuals with Skills and Education. And, for myself, who's heavily involved in, interest in governance and this idea, I've been sitting all day also thinking, I love the tracker, of how she's right that usage will be so important. And, I heard, of course, Carol state that it'll have to be young persons. I similarly sat down same time going in some group chats talking about it. And what I want to say is, I agree that somebody said, how can we therefore think how we use it across our agencies? And I start think, well, as Prime Minister Golding said, it starts with something small against big. And I think perhaps we can start with all of us that are here, the bodies that we come from. But I'm also part of why I'm so happy with this tool. I remember seeing Jeanette and Ika at a previous engagement that we had last year. And I said to them that, the problem we have, which I'm hearing from Consequence from Prime Minister Golding, is this needs to not be the government, but our government. We're Jamaica. And I said we needed a cultural shift in our language. And I think what we need to do, therefore, is just like we need to feel the government's ours, I think we need to start having this tracker as ours. So this is no longer JAMP's tracker. This is the citizens' tracker.
That's right.
How do we do that? I think same bodies that are here, we said Jeanette speaks. I told her you see every day on behind the headlines and there. She speaks with her factual evidence. I think other entities know when we speak, we should also speak using the data we see on this tool. Because when you do that, even people don't hear about the tracker, they're going to say, hey, every entity keeps saying according to this. And we will engender data culture on. And eventually when the students people like you start doing it as well, that is how we're doing it. So that was my charge. I think we'll sing it in the media more, all like this, and we start there. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for those thoughts. Yes, madam. Yes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Crystal Williams. I'm from CVM News. I heard the former Prime Minister say that we shouldn't leave the accountability of delivery services up to JAMP. But I was wondering who should be responsible for the delivery service and how we track that and the accountability of that.
Yeah. Don't if you want to respond.
I was hoping I would get an opportunity to also revisit that statement because we actually, as part of our relationship with the EU, which is really a policy that I love, there are several other smaller civil society organizations that don't quite meet this threshold of EU requirements. And so what the EU has is a policy where we pivot from the grants we receive and we in turn sub-grant and we monitor. We help to build their capacity. So this year we had an organization called the Lesma Ennis Foundation, fairly new, growing. This was their second support, I think, through a sub-grant. And they actually, inspired by the work JAMP was doing, wrote a proposal that wanted to create what is called the GovWatch JA. And I'm happy that Ika sent this over to me by WhatsApp because what this is literally doing, Mr. Golding and Crystal, is exactly what Mr. Golding mentioned. It's taken an app now to the local level, to the community level. And I think the KCMC had tried it once where they had created an app where citizens could speak to concerns and complaints. But this is brand new, so we haven't had an opportunity to promote it as yet. The question we will have to decide with the board is whether or not we incorporate it into JAMP's trackers, or as Mr. Golding is already pointing out, that we keep a little bit of a distance because there could be some, challenges when we are mixing the non-subjective with something that can get a little more political. But it's the GovWatch JA, and it's directly dealing with public goods and services, but particularly at the local government and the local level where you will be interacting more with your councillors to get this done. So you can take a look at it, but that is really good news that we are involved in something that's already beginning to address it at that level. Thank you much.
And also, do remember the work that Capri does. Capri does a lot of the quality investigation. Recall the most recent report that they have done on education and how the spend in education is what the result is in terms of the output that we get in the children and their learning. And so Capri's work is very, very, very much part of that quality, the monitoring of the results of what is being spent. In fact, I would say that is the core, a big part of the core of what Capri does. Yeah? Yes, Nora, and then yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nora. Today, I represent Advocates Network. We are a civil society group, network of entities. Now, my concerns are coming to that question is that as I listen, Janet and I work very closely. I admire her greatly. I have a good insight of what is going on. I appreciate the work of JAMP. But something is coming across to me, and it is a concern, Jeanette, that I wouldn't want the value of JAMP to be lost on all of us, meaning our civil society, where Prime Minister Golden, you sort of alluded to when he spoke to the thing of the delivery and quality of service that might not be JAMP's work. And Ms. CPM just asked a question and Jeanette answered in terms of this GovWatch JA possibility. My thing is, when you meet with the board of the permanent secretaries, you reported that the chair or PSOJ thought, oh, good, we actually saw good, right? But on this, where we are, the citizens, we are not feeling it. So, and we know that conundrum, but enough. So, what I'm trying to figure out is what is needed to help to bridge the gap. And my thinking is that might be another grant or another entity to do it. It's deepening of governance so that when you come up with the sectorial tracker, it's going to be measuring what people want and not what they want to give us, which is probably why we're at the dissonance where it appears that government is doing well at a 40% or whatever the measurement might be. But then on the ground, when you do your informal survey, it's just 10% of us that are impressed. So it's just something for us to cast an interesting thought.
Yes, the gap between what the citizens are hoping and praying for and what is presented to us as the government's priorities at any given point in time. And how do we close that gap? I see Carolyn Hill, and absolutely.
Where the annual report. Mm-hmm. It is the law that you have 4 months after the end of the budget to file that report. Now, the problem is, as you said, the minister has to take it to Parliament, the CEO can't. But there are actually sanctions that are attracted to the CEO for not producing that document, right? So it's two parts of the story. But the PBMA is the act that governs the public bodies, and that's what the tracker is using. The central government, there are different rules that operate for central government, and that's what the sector tracker would be looking at. However, they meet in the annual report because from PBMA, from the public body side, when we create the corporate plan, which feeds the budget, you must have those strategic issues in it, which should feed to the sectoral piece. So it's process.
It's process. Thank you. And sir, you have the last word.
Thank you very much. Andrew Lately, I'm a member of the PSOJ Secretariat team. I was just curious about, particularly with regards to the public bodies tracker, the timeliness of the information that is presented in that tracker. How frequently is the data updated there? And also, Dr. Figueroa teased this earlier, the hurricane response tracker. And I was wondering, Jeanette, just how soon you'd be able to bring that to the public.
So just as Jeanette makes her way, as you heard from Jeanette, the updating is an ongoing exercise, but as you've also heard, we can't produce the information. The ministries have to respond to the access to information requests. And if a year goes by and they haven't, it's what you're gonna see. You see? So because JAMP does not invent the information it puts up, it relies on all the public sources of information. And that is a bit of a challenge, but it is an ongoing update exercise.
So the very quick answer to that question is actually, and it is tied again back to the law, where they are required to provide an annual report. So we will be following pretty much that same cycle. Yes, that's for the as for the hurricane. We really thought it would have been out already. I am happy to say that I am 95, 98% done, you know. It's really now the data to really, precisely, but the tracker itself is complete. So it's really data entry. So in short order. But as you can see, that can be longer than we want it to be, which is why, though my chair is saying in short order, I'm not 100% sure. We have done our part, Andrew, so now we're hoping that government will be as responsive. Thanks.
Well, all right, quick.
Dukwa from the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. I was just randomly looking at one of the sectors and the performance. Now, I looked at the item that was kept. Now, all the kept items here just tells me the status as kept, and none of them has either a link or an attachment or stuff like that. Since you say that this information is gotten from the public, it's a way, at least, if we may not get 100% file or links to these information, especially what has been kept. But if there's a way that we can populate this in, so that some of us who are researchers can also be able to probe, not just saying that the government allocated this amount. We can have data to prove that this thing was conflicted.
May I would like, thank you very much. I would like, however, to just share that the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal is staffed by 3 people. Jeanette Calder, Ike Bailey, Terry Ann Edwards. And so, and then it's supported by Dorian, who does the work, the actual technical work on it. So there is a limit. There is going to be a limit to how much we can provide you. And a lot is going to be left to your own diligence and follow-up of the breadcrumbs that we provide with the tools. So yes, links to, if it's the annual reports that we say have been tabled, a link to them and so on, but I agree that that is another level of effort that 3 people will be hard-pressed to meet our demand. So bear that in mind, all right? It may well be, though, that just taking Nadia's point, that the collaboration with the tertiary institutions might well be a means of doing some of the research that's necessary to continue to build out the volume of what we're able to provide. So we can look at it, but really and truly, we're doing the best, really, with the 3 people that we have. All right. We thank you so very, very much for having joined us for this morning and into this afternoon for the presentation of the trackers. We are very grateful to for the partnership with the private sector organization of Jamaica. We are profoundly appreciative and grateful for the European Union's continued accompaniment of this process and its provision of the financial resources, but not only financial resources. The EU evaluates us at the end of the projects that they have, the period of funding that they have assigned. And they bring in external evaluators who don't only talk to us, they talk to stakeholders, they talk to members of the public that might have utilized to the best that they can. And they do a report that says, this is where JAMP is strong, this is where JAMP is weak, this is how the resources have been utilized, this is how it could be improved, etc. And so it is very much a partnership that is grounded in accountability. And for that, we are grateful and appreciative because it keeps us honest and accountable ourselves. We are also very, 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 very happy for the British High Commission and its partnership with work that we do, complementing, supplementing the support from the EU. You know, for each block of funding that we receive from the EU, we are required to mobilize additional resources. So the EU say to give a budget of whatever, you're not getting 100%, you're getting 80%, and you are required, and that's a very important exercise for us, a very important requirement. So you don't get complacent that you're going to have, no. And so we are really, really thankful that the British High Commission, along with other entities, have stuck their head up, looked across the horizon, and actually said to us, we see you, we see the work that you're doing, and we would like to support it. And so we thank them very, very much. Can I ask you to once again thank and show our appreciation physically for Aurette Bruce Golding, our former flying minister, who served as our keynote speaker and challenged us to not be complacent, to actually do the work that we need to do to make sure these tools are in use. And that has always been an area that we really grapple with and exercise our brains around. And it is, as one of our colleagues in the audience said, it really then becomes a collective task. You each belong to an organization, a professional group, a church, whatever it is, a community-based organization. Help us to get the information out, to come and present, to come and show people how the information is relevant to their lives and how they can utilize the tools. I want to really, really thank Icabel, Terry Ann Edwards, and Jeanette Cullen. If I could just ask them to stand. Please and thanks. These 3 women toil upwards through the night while we sleep in order to get the job done. And so we're really, really grateful and are thankful. None of the trackers can happen without the research work, I could say. None of what we produce would happen without the coordinating and logistics management and administrative support and all sorts of other bottle washing that Terry Ann Edwards does. So we're thankful to everyone. We thank you all for coming, and we really, really are looking forward
to your requests for us to come, talk, share. And so we invite you now to join us for refreshment before you set up. But thank you, everyone. We thank the Ligonier Club for its support as well, and everybody. Thank you all.
Who do you think you are? You are an owner. You own all public assets, like public funds, buildings, and land. You are an employer. With every vote, you hire 63 MPs and you pay their salaries and the salaries of over 100,000 public officials. You are the financier of all roads, schools, healthcare, security. In fact, all government activities are financed by you. To transform our country, we need to change our mindset. Because if we don't, we might end up in Hector's ownership dilemma.
Hector? Boy, you look like you're heading to the clouds, man.
Oh, Athlin. Sorry, I just have a lot on my mind.
Haven't seen you for a good while. How's your new business?
My business? I wouldn't know.
How you mean? You sell it?
No, it's up and running. Bought the building, the equipment, supplies, got the license and permit. I even appointed a board and hired a CEO, CMO, CFO, every O. But
good. Things are going for you, man. So why you look so?
Well, nobody tells me anything.
Wait, I'm not following. Aren't you the owner and chairman of the board?
I get no sales, no marketing, no financial report, nothing. Board meetings are called, decisions are taken. Nobody invites me.
You cannot be serious.
Athlin, I'm here to transfer $1.5 million to the company, and I'm short. I have to send it every 3 months. If not, the board can sue me.
These are your employees. So if you have no idea what's happening and you're just pouring money in, then just fire them and get a new board.
If I could, but I can't. The contract I signed says unless I can prove, say them do crime, missed work 6 days in a row, or they're mad like rat, then I am stuck with them until the contract expires.
So how long is that?
5 years.
5 years? So who prepared that contract?
Athena them same one write it.
Hector, my dear friend, I think I know how you could get out of that contract.
For real? How?
Go to court. Tell them exactly what you told me and plead insanity. With that story, the judge will surely believe you and release you.
Now, Hector wants what is best for his company, his family, and their future. But he leave himself careless and can't hold his employees to account. But if we're not careful, it's the same thing we doing. So we have to start behave like the owners, employers, and financiers we really are. Visit jampja.org and use our free online tools to track how your taxes are spent and to ensure greater accountability from public officials. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the UK International Development and the Embassy of the United States. Remember that big project the government announced them was going to from when? You ever get yourself a wonder what happened to it? Stop wonder like an outsider and start move like the country belong to you. You have a right to publicly owned information, and the Access to Information Act gives you that power. I know you have enough questions about how government are run or not run, so let me show you how it works. Say mosquito spraying going on in your community, your children asthmatic and you want to know what chemicals are in it. Or what about that Auditor General report on a public official getting twice his salary with no proper approval? Is your taxes and you want to know if they paid it back? First, do some basic searching to see what is already on government websites. If you don't see what you're looking for, make a formal ATI request by completing the application form on the ATI site or sending a letter or email. And remember, you don't have to say why you need it. It is your right to know. Make sure you send your request to the right agency, and once they confirm receipt, they get 30 calendar days to provide the information, a maximum of 60 if extra time is needed. Yes, I know you want access to everything. But sensitive documents are protected from the public for up to 20 years. For example, documents that would expose a citizen's personal privacy, or those dealing with cabinet discussions, the Governor General's office, or information on the investigative activities of the security forces. Any public officer who tries to destroy or hide any official document can be sanctioned. And if you're having difficulties, the ATI unit will help. So, what if the chemicals in the mosquito spray are toxic? What if the agency did not even try to get back the money they paid out? Call or email your MP. Share the concern, because as your elected representative, they can represent your questions to the government ministers in the House. Remember, it is the job of parliamentarians to monitor and hold the government to account on your behalf. Is not every country give citizens this kind of power, you know? And at 20 years we have this law, and we barely use it. So access information and mind your business, Jamaica. Visit jampja.org today to see what information we access to make it easier for you to hold the government to account. Let's do our job to make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union in partnership with the private sector organization of Jamaica.